Okay.
Hi, Jerry Wilkie. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to remute the line and we'll be getting underway right away.
Okay, we'll call our April 3rd, 2020 board meeting to order and call this pandemic #1 meeting, and I'm hoping we don't have to have too many of these meetings this way, but I appreciate everybody's work yesterday. Kakisa, I'd like to acknowledge we are meeting this morning on the traditional territory and the homeland of the Kanaka people. Welcome to the directors, the staff who joined us online, and the media. I'm sure you're joining us online, as well as some of the residents of East Kootenay who may choose to join now or later. Directors, I feel will be about an hour. We'll see how it's going. We'll take a short biology break then if we need a refreshment. And then, as I mentioned yesterday, for the reports from directors, we will go on reverse order from the voting list. So that will be starting with Director Wilkes and Wilkie, followed by Director Walter. We will have we have one item on our closed agenda, and then for the media, if you would email our communications manager, she will line you up with myself or any of the directors who you may wish to speak with. So I think we're ready to go. Are there any late agenda items this morning, directors?
Chair Gay, Shannon Moscow got a late agenda item that we drafted up on the closure of the Alberta border to non-essential traffic.
Okay, if I could get you'll move that, Director Doyle?
That's correct.
Okay, if I could get a seconder for that?
Director McCarricker.
Director McCarricker, seconds, thank you. Is there anybody opposed to that late agenda item? Hearing none, the motion is carried. So back to the board agenda, I'll get a mover for that, as amended.
Cormick moves.
Thank you, Director McCarricker, Cormick. Look at the pictures here. Get a seconder, please.
Director Doyle.
Thank you, Director Doyle. Any discussion? Is there anybody opposed? Hearing none opposed, motion is carried.
Next item is, oh, sorry, Shannon.
Next item is 4.1. The minutes of the RDEK Board of Directors meeting held on March 6th be adopted as circulated.
Mover. Director Carrier moves, second. Director Wilkes, second. Further discussion? Is anybody opposed to the minutes? Hearing none, motion is carried.
Item 4.2. The minutes of the RDK Board of Directors special vote held on March 13th be adopted as circulated.
Okay, are you going to mover?
Darcy.
Director Doyle moves. I see Director Sturzer seconds. Any discussion? Is anybody opposed? Okay, the minutes are carried.
Our next is a delegation is MLA Tom Shipka regarding restricting interprovincial travel.
Good morning, Tom, and welcome. Thank you for taking the time on the board, and the floor is yours. Oh,
here. Oh, there we go. You hear me now?
Just let me, Tom, just let me check, make sure that you're audible to all the directors. So any directors cannot hear our MLA?
Hello. Everybody hear me?
Okay.
Well, thank you, Chair Gay, and thank you, directors, for giving the time here today. If any of you are like me, you missed the getting a haircut thing before they shut down the personal health services. I'm kind of scrambling here. I'm just going to see if I can share something here with you. I don't know if this works or not. Okay. Everybody seen that? See this? Everybody can read? Okay. So I've been working with Director Doyle on this for the last little while, and it's something I think everybody's well aware of, and that's the traffic we see here in the summertime, starting here on the Easter long weekend. And it's going to be a problem. we all know the influx of people that we get. We also know the resources that we have right now, and they're stretched to be kind. They're more than stretched. We're at the breaking point. So I thought instead of just going to a little spiel, I'd give you kind of what I wrote the minister here. And I can't quite see all of my, okay, there we go. So I'll just read you what I got here, and then we can have discussion. And my whole point of this is just to bring to light to all the directors the issue that we're going to be seeing going forward in the summertime. So I'll start with the letter. As Emily for Kootenai East and a resident of this region, my entire life has been grounded in the lifestyle this area brings. The communities are very small and the recreational opportunities are very big. Out of province travelers starting the Easter weekend until the end of September come in by the tens of thousands, if not in the hundreds of thousands. Fishing, hunting, camping, hiking, along with RVing and camping at the many provincial, private, and unsanctioned crown land campsites are in the thousands. Activities like the famous unsanctioned Kootenai mud bogs garner thousands of visitors to the area on the Easter long weekend. Houseboating activities, volleyball tournaments, wakeboard championships, beach parties, and many other activities are all spontaneous and for a large part unsanctioned, which means it's hard to identify and even harder to enforce when it comes to compliance of our provincial health order in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. As you can imagine, in such small communities, we have very limited resources. As a matter of fact, the Alberta Emergency Department is just closed on April 1st. We also have very limited resources with all our healthcare professionals, paramedics, care aides, conservation officers, and others. In a time when the country is scrambling to find resources for the pandemic, small rural communities are especially hard hit. The volume of transmigrating traffic to and from across the BC-Alberta border will stretch these resources to the breaking point. The issues to consider are the following. Increased volume creates more traffic and thus creates more traffic accidents and fatalities to these small regional hospitals. Our hospitals are already stretched and an ER is closed. Limited resources, both goods and supplies, that's grocery, pharmaceutical, etc., or human resources, professional healthcare workers, conservation officers, paramedics, are budgeted for normal times and for our specific populations and volumes and not for a provincial state of emergency. We're seeing it now. The provincial health order is to conduct state practices such as social distancing, proper hygiene, and not traveling out unless absolutely necessary. Dr. Bonnie Henry just the other day was quoted at a recent press conference saying to people, quote, stay home, stay apart, and don't travel to small communities, end quote. Once people get back into our backcountry, they're essentially off the radar in many cases. Enforcement will be next to impossible to conduct. Many people will look at camping as perhaps a great way to self-isolate if they have symptoms. I've heard this personally, actually. This is just human nature. The demographic that makes up a lot of recreation are older people that are the most vulnerable. Out of province travel brings transmigratory traffic back and forth from other jurisdictions and municipalities. This includes workplaces across the country. Many visitors work in the natural resource sector in northern Alberta and elsewhere. This back and forth between shifts is not conducive to the provincial health order. Also, First Nations in the area have already expressed their concerns and will be shutting down their reserved secondary home use, as well as some of the private sectors also shutting down. So there will be inconsistent approaches to those that are doing the right thing and those that will capitalize. In closing, I will be straight up and say that I would not ask for this if I didn't think it was absolutely necessary. I understand migratory travel and ensuring we are adhering the best we can to the provincial health order and the laws of British Columbia. A temporary closing of the BC-Alberta border is a responsible approach to ensure our compliance with all the great work the BC Centre of Disease Control is doing and the provincial health officer, Dr. Bonnie Henry. We have all been asked to put aside our personal conveniences during this unprecedented time. I would think that non-essential travel would fit into that definition. We all want to see the great work already done by British Columbians not to be upended in any way. A closure to non-essential traffic would be the easiest and most efficient way in ensuring we are compliant with the provincial health order and our current provincial state of emergency. That's myself. And now, let's see if I can, I can't. Okay, am I back on the screen again or no? to stop sharing here somehow.
There you go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry. And I also had another letter from Bass that I could share, but I'll do that later. But one of the workers from Bass Resources received, and this is just one of many letters I've received in my office, people noticing already the influx of visitors that are coming to our area, and that's just normal. But the fact that they're just not adhering to the provincial health order is very troubling. And I would hate to see a cluster break out in one of these communities over the summer. As I said, these groups and these RV parks are very tight, and there's a lot of people coming and going. And I really think we'd be doing our residents a big disservice if we didn't address this issue. From that, I'll leave it for discussion with the board. I know Director Doyle's got some additional notes he wants to talk about, as I'm sure many of you else, the rest of you have as well. So I think with that, it's short and sweet. I think this is a real issue. We've talked to, the other day we had a very good discussion with some of the ministry staff from Glenroe. We had Paul Rasmussen, who's the Assistant Deputy Minister, was on the line. Ken McLaren, who's the Ministerial Assistant. And then Garth Wiggle, he's the Regional Executive Director for Glenroe here in our area. So a very high level meeting. To be honest, none of them argued. Ken McLaren, who's the Ministerial Assistant for Glenroe, for the Minister, was actually quite surprised by what me and Director Doyle brought forward. They recognized that it was a concern. It was completely off their radar, to tell you the truth. And what I got out of the meeting, they were somewhat flabbergasted to what we go through here in the small corner of the province. And that kind of goes unsaid. But we usually get we're not usually in the limelight so much as Victoria, Vancouver is out here. But it is a real threat, and I think it should be addressed.
Thank you very much, Tom. And I do have a speakers list, directors, if you want to go online, otherwise we'll take it. So I've got, just to support what our MLA is saying, that, it's an interesting time because the children are out of school and many of the people are being laid off. And as MLA said, they're going to the woods, taking their trailers and going there and feeling they're isolating. So we're already seeing it. So I've got Director Lopchuk up first. Go ahead, Director.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Tom. I don't think that any of us could argue that the influx of second homeowners has been an issue. I know Director Miller and MLA Lopchuk have been doing a lot of work with that conversation and really trying to educate people. My biggest concern is how would all of this be policed? And also, is this not a discussion with, government, the federal government and the provincial government, and where does your caucus stand? So I guess a few questions in there.
Well, good questions. First of all, on the enforcement piece, I think, you take care of it now or you take care of it later. And I think the later is more resource stressful. It's not as much enforcement to put a CO and RCMP officer on Highway 3 or Highway 95 as it is to have COs and NROs and everybody else trying to break up all the small gatherings everywhere from Big Springs across around Kukanusa to Newgate. I mean, the backcountry, there's thousands and thousands of kilometers. And these gatherings can happen anywhere at any time. And whether it's 2 in the morning and it's a large bonfire somewhere on the shores of Newgate, or it's somewhere out in Big Springs or somewhere else in Baines Lake or Grasmere or wherever you want to be, I think it's a lot more easier on the enforcement piece to have a border closure and have enforcement there. I think what was the other thing about it, where it sits on it? Well, that's something I'm actually it's actually being brought forward right now. MLA Lopchuk and myself and MLA Morris, and there's a couple others that are pitching it to our party. But to be quite honest, this is a nonpartisan issue for me. It's doing what's right, and it's doing what we have to do to ensure the provincial health order is being recognized. So quite honestly, I think it's nonpartisan, and I feel what I feel, and I hear what the residents are saying, so I'll be pushing back if there's any opposition from the caucus.
Okay, so the speakers listed, Director Wilkes, Doyle, and Screws are in that order. So Director Wilkes, questions?
Thanks, Tom, for this. Just a couple comments. You mentioned our CNP and COs. We have two CAOs, or two COs for this region. And we have to remember it's 24/7. It's not just 9 to 5. This detachment in the Elk Valley has 18 members, of which they're down to about 12 right now. So I think it's impossible. However, I do have one possible solution that you might want to take back. And it would only work on Highway 3 at the just the east of Spirewood, and that is that you could divert all traffic into the Spirewood waste fields. And you can check every person, and if they're not deemed to be essential, you turn them around. The challenge now
We've lost Director Wilkes' voice.
Lost your audio there.
Just stay on a second. We'll see if we can get you back.
am I good now?
Yep.
Yes, yeah. Go ahead, Director Wilkes, continue.
Okay.
So you just said, you cut out just for your view, you said weight scale, so you can continue from there, please.
So from the perspective of the waste fields of Spirewood, it would be a daunting task, and it would back traffic up for miles. But you could divert everyone into the waste field, check where they're going, and turn them around. The challenge you have with that is that there's probably 500 to 700 employees, maybe more, that live in Alberta that work in tech. There's also close to about 700 to 800 contractors right now on a 7 and 7. How you're gonna figure out who they are is another thing. And my final comment would be from the perspective of the provincial government is lobbying the federal government to get off there, you know what, and declare the emergency act, the Federal Emergency Act. They could solve this real quick. Declare the Federal Emergency Act, make everyone stay at home, done. But they won't do it. So, anyways, that's all it is.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Director Wilkes. Good points. Well, I mean, the first one you mentioned about being impossible to enforce, we only have two COs. I would suggest that if it's impossible to enforce two COs and just 2 pinch points between the Highway 3 and Highway 95, it's going to be more impossible for those COs to try to enforce people, those two COs within our region to make sure that we're adhering to the provincial health order. I think the pinch points between Highway 3 and Highway 95, those two highways, that is your most effective way of enforcement. So I don't know if you need dedicated, the provincial government has to cough up for dedicated employees or enforcement on those pinch points when you come into the province, or I'm sure that's what we'd have to recommend, is to have that resource there and keep our two COs in the backcountry where they should be. On the other part about the workers and the contractors, yes, there's many. I'm sure Tech has ID badges and things like that. That would be a way to get through. Also, I'm sure the ministry or some other area, the provincial health office, would probably come up with some sort of a pass for essential workers that could be given out at the local office. I don't know those nuances. That's what this discussion is all about. There's always going to be some details to something like this. This is obviously a big deal. Nova Scotia's done it. We could take maybe a case of what they're doing to make it work. But this isn't anything new, and I think it's something that's being a recreational hub that we are. I think we're going to be hit hard, and I think there's going to be some negative impact from it.
Thank you. We've got Director Doyle and then Director Screw. Director Doyle.
So thank you, Chair. Just thank you, Emily Spica, for your work on this. It's been been trying for all of us out there to try to put something together. And just to back up some of Tom's claims there, we've had conversations with the CO service out there, and they recognize they don't have enough people, they don't have enough PPE equipment, even to deal with what they're dealing with on a daily basis out there. And they would recognize that it would be a lot easier to do Trans Canada, which is pinch off the 95 highway down there and Highway 3. The resources would be substantially less to deal with it that way. I talked to the Sergeant Tribe out of the Elk Valley, and he recognizes that would be a great way of dealing with this. They're stretched on their resources too. They only have so many officers out there. So he fully in favor of having a non-essential traffic blocked at the border. Our other concern that we've talked about out there is our fire service, our first responders out here. We're concerned about their health and well-being out there. They're first on the scene. If the border stays open, all the traffic flows, the accidents, motorbike accidents and everything. So they're struggling in a major way. Campground owners, I've had conversations with Bob Cutts out of Kootenai Marina. He gets it. He says he is fully in favor of a closure, and they voice their concerns that maybe later in the summer, as this goes through, maybe they could open up just the trailer access. That's something to look at down into there, just so people can come in. But I said it's changing daily. We don't know where this is going. Big Pines, another large, there are 200 units out there. They indicated, yeah, they're going to stay closed, but we have to send a message out there that they're all closed. Things like Store Campground, PR Campground, they're closed. And these are all self-imposed from their own. They recognize what we're in. The local doctors, there's a big push out of the Elk Valley, but the local doctors, they just want people to stay home. The message is stay home and to stop this pandemic, spread throughout our communities. And the residents, we've had continuous calls from our residents out there. Tom knows what he's had in there. I've had lots, and I think we have to be, prudent as the elected officials out here to put that message forward. That we don't want to react too late. I think now is the time to react to this. And if we get, provincial help with that, like Director Wilkes said, even federal, they can impose that onto there. And put the military out on there. And it's not going to take a lot of resources to block this off. It would be the best use of our resources. So, but thank you, and I'll let the next speaker go on.
Okay, Director, is there any questions of our MLA?
Yes, thank you very much, MLA Shapika, and a lot of the questions that I've had have been answered in the previous two directors' questions, but I was wondering if you could break down a little bit more for me for what the definition of non-essential would be. And I'm also curious how that ties into, I completely understand, people coming out and using the backcountry and camping and bringing their RVs and so on. But I'm curious also about titled landholders in our various communities that are paying taxes on properties and how that impacts too. It's a lot to take in. We have dealt with it in our community. I've had some conversations out there, and we've seen it. We've seen people coming out and being reckless in these times. So it is of concern. But the question is on the non-essential status. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Director. Yeah, that's obviously the definition we want to kind of break down as much as we possibly can. But I think in broad terms, non-essential would be exactly what it says. If it's travel that you don't necessarily need to do, i.e. if it's not work or family related, like what about the person that's got a child in a hospital on the other side of the border? I mean, that's essential. Non-essential essentially means going or traveling in a manner that you don't necessarily have to, which is actually reflective of what the provincial health order states. If you don't have to go, if you don't have to travel, it's not necessary, then don't. That's what our health officer has been preaching for the last 2 or 3 weeks now. Like I said in my opening remarks, her comments were stay home, stay apart, and don't travel to small communities. Now, I don't know why she said that. That's an exact quote. It was almost a message to government, I think, in a little ways, saying, don't trouble, and she recognizes the fact that small communities have very limited resources. We have 3 ventilators in Cranbrook, and we've got 1 ventilator in Invermere. That's it. We get a cluster outbreak in one of these small trailer parks or on the beach somewhere, and we're stretched. We're done. So I don't know why we would want to put that burden on our residents and on our healthcare system here in rural BC. And like I said before, you mentioned about landowners, and we're sympathetic to that. But if it's a secondary home and it's a secondary use, we're all being asked to stick to our primary homes, our primary residences. That's what non-essential travel essentially means, is don't go to your secondary. Stay to your primary. So I also mentioned in the beginning, this isn't about people coming across the border. We're not, we're sensitive to the fact that we love our Albertan neighbors and we rely on them to a large degree for a lot of things. But it's not the people we're opposed to. It's the cause and effect from the migratory travel that is what's going to be deadly for us. So I mean, yeah, there's going to be some hard feelings, I'm sure, but I don't know, that's what the discussion's about. What's the benefit and what's the negatives and what's the positives to doing this?
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. We've got Director Klobuchar again on the speaker's list. Go ahead. Director.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Tom, for all those answers. One of the questions I have too is you talk about the out-of-province travel coming into that country. We're going to have a similar issue with our locals come the time. So I question whether if this is in fact the right approach. And again, I go back to, should we be employing the federal government, because we're going to need our resources locally to deal with local issues in our backcountry. And should we be not approaching the Solicitor General to approach the federal government and really look at getting if we get to that point, is it time to engage the armed forces? So if we're going to get to that point, and because it's not only East Kootenay, it's also up north. There's a lot of borders, a lot of border crossings between British Columbia and Alberta that would have to be addressed. So it wouldn't be just for us. So I would be concerned about the resources, and we're going to need those resources in our own communities to deal with some of the inappropriate behaviors of locals. But I don't think this is a Alberta or out of province issue alone. I think it's something that's bigger than that, and I don't know that just closing the borders is a big enough solution.
Yeah, thanks, Director Kolchak. Good points. There's 5 pinch points between BC and Alberta. There's the Highway 3, Highway 95, there's Trans-Canada, and then there's 2 up north in the Peace. So there's five pinch points that we have to deal with. And the whole issue about the feds being involved, yes, I would love to see some assistance there, as Director Wilkes had mentioned earlier as well. And this initiative that we're going through right now would push the provincial government to reach out to the federal government for assistance. So this is part and parcel addressing this bigger piece that you're talking about. And I think that's, you hit it right on the head. This is a bigger issue. They could just identify the southeast corner, just Highway 3 and Highway 95. There's not that much transmigratory traffic in the Peace region. There's not a lot of wheat fields up there in the Peace and things like that. But that being said, yes, we would have to address all 5 pinch points between BC and Alberta. And this initiative that I'm trying to bring forward right now, and I'm hoping forward, would put the ball in the provincial government's court to reach out to the feds to ask for assistance if it's deemed necessary by the board of directors here right now.
Thank you. I've got quite a long list, so I've got Director McCarricker, Reinhardt, Wilkie, and Lisa. So Director McCarricker, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Bob, for your presentation. I think it's awesome. I agree with Director Wilkes that we need to stop them at the windmill. If we let them come in farther and they try to turn around, and then they have access to Highway 43, and that's not satisfactory for me. And you stated we've lost our emergency department on April 1st. And council, we've talked about it, we haven't had an official vote. We've talked about we're not going to open our campground until further notice. And so there's nowhere for them to go except in the bush. I guess what I'm hearing from Director Tolchuk, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, you're talking about closing all the backcountry, and I think that's a great thing. I'll leave it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, Director Wilkie, are you with us?
I appreciate the discussion, Tom, and just wondering, we haven't heard from MLA Klonchuk on the issue. I would assume that he's on board. But just to bring up a couple of logistical points when it comes to your initiative. Highway 95, yes, that could be blocked off, but then people who were desperately wanted to get around it would travel west of Lake Louise. We'd have to have another checkpoint there. And I really wonder, unless we get a sort of a state of emergency or almost a War Measures Act order federally, how it would even be possible to man this. I would strongly suggest that real strong communication about the issue of urging people to stay home would be a really important first step.
Yeah, Director, any comments?
Yeah, thanks, Director Wilkie, for that. Well, we are in a provincial state of emergency right now, not a federal. Where are we? I don't know. I don't think we're not. But we are in a provincial state of emergency for sure. I'm a little upset that the provincial government is taking away our local rights and enact a local state of emergency. That would help us out a lot because we could isolate it in our own way, like Director Wilkes is suggesting right now. That might be another avenue to go, is to push government to allow us for a local state of emergency. So we can have tools in our own hands to do what we want to do. Like staying, putting people around weigh scales and things like that. So there's lots to talk about, but I really believe the most effective way with our resources to control those 5 pinch points between BC and Alberta is to have 2 people at each, 24 hours a day, as Director Wilkes said. But that has to come, our resources are going to get used one way or the other. And whether it's a constant fight throughout the summer and have our COs pulling their hairs out, trying to scramble, and all the complaints are going to come with it. You know that people are going to say, oh, I saw there's a big party going down at Newgate today, and there's 50 people playing volleyball. No, these guys are going to come back and forth all year, not to mention just the people that are going to be together in their RV parks and using public washrooms back and forth. It's can be impossible to enforce. So I think the most effective way is actually at our borders.
Thank you. I've got Director Reinhardt and Lisa, and please, directors, just check that you're on mute. Director Reinhardt, good morning. Go ahead.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, MCC Dixon, for taking the time to do this. So I just need to clarify a point. I think you're mostly referring to Highway 93, not 95. 95 is our connector to Golden. 93 is going through the park. So, I think that's an important distinction because as Director Wilkie said, if they can't get through one, they'll go through the other. So there's 2 different kind of access points. I guess our local campgrounds are voluntarily closing down. So Greg Deck called us this week and he's canceling all his reservations for April. Parks Canada has indicated that they're not opening yet anyway, but they're staying closed until they have the all clear. So if we're going to close the highway or lobby to that or advocate, are we intending that it goes both ways? Because if we don't want to send the message out that Alberta should come, we have to also send the message out that British Columbians need to stay home. So is it going to go both ways?
Yeah, great point. I would suggest it would. I think what's good for us should be good for everybody else and vice versa. Alberta would probably want to weigh in. I've been in contact with the MLA from the other side, the MLA Reid from on the other side of us here, on the Alberta side. He hasn't gotten back to me yet. I'll be talking to him probably today on coordinating between the two provinces. But yeah, it's a good point. I think it has to go both ways. I don't think we necessarily want our people from our side of the border going over there and connecting and then coming back. I think our healthcare system is provincial and it's budgeted that way, and I think we've got to kind of keep it within our jurisdictions during this crisis.
Thank you very much. Director Blaze.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to be try to put a pin in this robust discussion. I think we've been at it for about 40 minutes, and I don't know what's happening in all of your municipalities, but I'd sure like to start moving some business here today. I think, I've said this before, I think the first goal is to get Dr. Henry to really use language that is very specific to second homeowners. We saw the Alberta health officer do that to great impact. Her language was strong. She did 2 strong paragraphs about the danger of anyone moving in COVID positive community to a smaller community. And it's that kind of language that's going to, I think, be more impactful than closing the border. I think we're going to see a couple of things coming our way in the next couple of weeks. And, I think it's going to happen to us. And also, we spent a great deal of time here today discussing how we would close it. And let's just remind ourselves that if it does get closed at our request, they'll do it however they want. And so I guess I think we're all approaching this with the right attitude. We're trying to make as many, trying to reduce impact on all of our small healthcare systems to the best of our ability. Mayor Josie from Tofino said that the most impactful way that all of her resorts, including all of her campgrounds, closed voluntarily was some really strong language from their chief of staff. So as we move through trying to minimize impact in our community, I think all of us have a role as local leaders to enable strong language from our chief of staff. It was when a doctor that they knew at the grocery store that they've seen in their community started to use strong language in Tofino that everything changed within about 5 days. And all of her resorts closed well in advance of any health directive. So I think we need to run at this with as many tools that we have available. And I'm happy for MLA to keep discussing closing the border, but I think he's going to do that regardless of whether we're going to have a resolution here today or not. And it's just one more thing that we should be talking about. But let's not spend another hour talking about it. Would be my preference.
Thank you. Much appreciated. Director Schmidt, I think we are going to move to the motion and maybe some final comments before we do.
No, yeah, absolutely. So thanks for the discussion. That's what this is all about. We just want to see what the benefits and the negative impacts of closing a border. It's obviously resource is a key point on closing a border to non-essential traffic. I understand that. But I also understand the crisis that we're in. I understand the strain that it's having on our healthcare professionals. We are at a breaking point. And if we have any further volume addressed to our healthcare system right now, we are going to get burnout, we're going to get fatigue, and I would hate to see a second wave of this come through. We know the health, Dr. Bonnie Henry is hoping that with this form of coronavirus, that it will subside here probably in the end of May sometime, but that it has a very strong chance of coming back in the fall. And the way that will happen is having a lot of transmigratory traffic between different jurisdictions and different municipalities and work sites. And we are essentially a breeding area for that. So I would like to nip it in the bud where we can, be as effective as we possibly can, and to recognize it. Director Guiza said strong language. Well, that only goes so far. We still see it right now. I mean, we've been harping on people for 3 weeks and we still see them down on the streets and down, unfortunately, the non-compliant will always do that. And I have a feeling, and I'm not trying to generalize here, but from what I see in the past on some of the people at recreate, they really don't care, I don't think. And I don't think our healthcare system should suffer for that. So anyways, great discussion. Love to see the motion go forward as presented.
So, in that light of that, our MLA, we're going to deal with that issue right now, and so you'll know sort of the outcome of what on the board feels. So maybe I'll ask Manager Moskal to read the motion we have prepared. And there's a couple of approaches, but let's have this motion first.
So the motion that was originally prepared was that a letter be sent to the provincial health officer requesting that additional measures such as closure of provincial borders to non-essential traffic into the province, closure of private campgrounds, and closure of the backcountry to overnight camping be put in place to limit the influx of visitors to and gathering in the regional district of East Kootenay during the COVID-19 pandemic.
We've got a mover in Director Doyle and for a seconder in Director McCarricker. Thank you very much. Further discussion on the motion? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just a quick comment so we can move on with this too, but we've had 2 weekends down in the South area down here, and they've been out of control there. The reservoir was full of people. The secondary homes, there were parties going on in there. The bed and breakfast, there was parties going. The smaller RV lots where there's 4 or 5, 6 trailers on the lot, and they're all gathered around the campfire. So we've got an example, and that's what really pushed this forward. Because the people, there's that certain group that don't listen, and they will affect these communities out there. So I would like to get the support of the board on this, and just for the protection of our people out there in our community, because that one small group can spread that virus through our communities, and we're in trouble. So thank you.
Okay, any further questions before we call the vote, Director? Our MLA speaker, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to say, if we could amend, and I know I can't, but maybe a suggestion here is that we CC the Minister of Health and also the Minister of Public Safety and Solicitor General on that letter.
The mover in supporter, we take this advice. I think that's very good advice to do so.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I support that 100%.
Director McGarrett, are you okay with that? Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, is
Mr.
there?
Chair?
Oh, yes, Director Klobuchar, sorry.
I'm a little concerned by the language of visitors. I don't think it should be just visitors. If we're going to be making that say, I think it should be, it really, I don't think we should make that distinction if we're going to move forward with this motion. Yeah, I just don't know that it's, I think that's to Director Police's point, that's just going to create this us and them perspective. So I'd like to see a further amendment if we're going to move forward with this at all.
So maybe we'll get to, I'm not sure we even need that word in there. I think we're talking about all people. So maybe if we could get that motion read again, Manager Moskal.
The motion is that a letter be sent to the provincial health officer requesting that additional measures such as closure of provincial borders to non-essential traffic into the province, closure of private campgrounds, and closure of the backcountry to overnight camping be put in place to limit the influx of visitors to and gathering in the regional district of East Kootenay during the COVID-19 pandemic.
So the issue is around the word visitor, that somebody, I guess by definition, somebody's coming here short term. So what we want is close to everybody, I think is what the intention is both ways. So if it's non-essential, we don't want those individuals here. So is there a better word for visitors? CEO Allen, suggestion?
Maybe we could just say travel to, what's travel to, and it's more general about who it is.
Yeah, the fact is that they're traveling. Okay.
Well, may I speak?
Yes, you may.
Thanks, sorry. I did my request to speak thing and I just don't know how to do it like this. So I was just on the phone with Bernie Search and Rescue Manager, and I guess what I'm trying to say, and I think Director Klobuchar is on the same page with me is we're as bad as any visitor. So right now, we've got people touring in fishbowls, taking on high risk backcountry activity locally, because the ski hill shut down. So if we're gonna go down this path, we need to check our own behavior first and foremost, because it's not visitors. In our region right now, you know, the influx that is happening at Kukanusa is coming out of Ultra, Sparwood, Fernie, Cranbrook, Invermere. Like we're all moving non-essentially. So I think we really need to be mindful of that. And this goalpost that we're doing, hopefully forcing Dr. Henry into some strong language, but it's all of us. We're all doing it, right? So I just want to be very clear that right now, search and rescue is more concerned about local high-risk backcountry activity than visitors coming in.
So maybe we would use the word, instead of visitors, all Canadian citizens, and we get all of us. Would that be useful? How would that sound? Just Canadian citizens, or all Canadian citizens?
Director Gay, or Chair Gay?
Yes, go ahead, Kraft.
Yeah, so I think we're getting hung up on the wording here. Basically, it's a suggestion that we're making and we're supporting that suggestion. Ultimately, when Bonnie Henry, if she comes out with some kind of directive, it's going to be in their language anyway. So let's not spend a whole bunch of time on a word, please.
So I think we understand the point that it's broader than just what we term visitors. So I think we're seeing a bit of a change in the wording. Andrew Moscow, go ahead.
CAO Tomlin had suggested that rather than saying that these measures be put in place to limit the influx of visitors to and gathering in the regional district, he had suggested saying be put in place to limit the influx of travel to and gathering in the regional district. That could be one option. Or we could say to be put in place to limit the influx of traveling to and within and gathering in the regional district, to encompass it more to both visitors and residents alike.
I think that captures it. I think so. I'm seeing some nods, so I think I'm going to call a question. If there's no more discussion, I think we all understand where we're trying to go with this. So I'm going to ask, is anyone in opposition to this motion? I'll ask it a second time. Any opposition? Okay, I've seen no opposition. This motion is carried. Thank you very much, Emily Spitka, for your hard work on this, and we'll do our part as well to see if we're successful on this. So thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Directors.
Chair Gay, before Tom leaves, can I just ask one thing?
You may.
Now that this is out, is it possible are you in favor of giving it all to the press so that they're going to run with it?
That's a good question. I think what we should do is just see if we get what kind of response we get in the short term, in the next 3 or 4 days, and whether they come out with a statement for or against, then we can make our case known that we're actually looking out for the people that are riding in general. I don't know if we want to run with it right away. I think we want to give them a chance to respond first. I think it'd be unfair.
Okay. The reason I'm saying it is because it is Friday, so they're going to be coming in tonight, tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for your work.
Director Gay, this, to Tom's point, this is public. The press are on this right now. So we don't have to put it out there. They're listening. And they'll be emailing Chair Gay at the end of this meeting, and he'll be giving them the answer. So it's over.
Yeah, thank you, and I will so. And I think they'll email our MLH as well. Thank you very much, everybody, on this one. And we do have our delegation waiting patiently on the marijuana, so we're going to turn it back over to Manager Lawson. Thank you very much, everybody.
So our next delegation today is Brenton Rabi and Sabine Donahoe regarding the BC Provincial Cannabis Regulations Marketing.
Thank you very much for your patience as you witnessed. It was quite a long discussion, so we appreciate that. So we normally give our delegations 10 minutes, and so go ahead. The floor is yours.
Okay, well, thank you very much. It was my hope that we were going to see our slide up on the screen. I'm not sure if there's a way.
Yes, they're there now. Yeah, thank you. You got it.
Just to jump into the delegation, it's just loading for the screen share, and you can just let me know when you wish to move forward on the slide as soon as you see it.
Okay, would it not be easier for us to share our screen?
If you could, that would be great.
Are you able to see the slide?
Yeah, so we have a picture of a tractor and in your headline, so I think we're good. So that's the first slide, and we did see the slide yet. So go ahead.
So thank you very much for having us here today. We're moving throughout the Kootenay region to make this presentation. I'm going to start by just outlining the specific section of the provincial cannabis control regulation that we're talking about today. In section 37, under marketing, advertising, and promotion, and it reads that a person must not market, advertise, or promote any place as a place to consume cannabis or to spend time after consuming cannabis. What we had at the regional district in Central Kootenay meeting on January 16th was the unanimous, that they passed unanimously a resolution that was forward to the AKPLG convention, which we all now know is canceled. That resolution reads that the Union of BC Municipalities working for government to remove Section 37 from the BC cannabis regulations, which will remove a significant barrier to the success of the cannabis industry in British Columbia. So to this end, and with what's happening right now in the world, we're hoping not to lose sight of our goal. We're remaining in the process, but we're modifying what we're asking from you today. We're not looking for emotion, and in fact, it seems unlikely that the KPLG convention might be endorsing resolutions anytime soon. So it's our hope that you're going to take the information that we're sharing with you today, moving forward to how the UPCN convention might be looking to or not endorse resolutions. So we see this as providing background for you in the hopes that you would bring information forward to help us have this resolution passed with the UPCN.
So Section 37 is effectively a full stop prohibition from any business other than a retail primary sale location. So this includes farm sales, farm tours, cafes, tasting, festivals, and other sorts of events. The marketing terms farm sales, local, craft, micro, they're all becoming more common in the cannabis industry because people assume that it is possible. However, Section 37 places large barriers in the way of those things actually becoming a reality. In addition to that, we cited that in the RDEK agricultural plan that you guys put forward in 2014, you said that diversification, alternate revenue streams, and value-added agriculture were all very important to the existing agricultural industries that you oversee. So if that's true of those, we also believe that it's going to be that much more true of cannabis, which has been very limited in the ways it can create alternate revenue streams. In addition to that, it can also create new jobs with different types of industries, different models, different businesses, aside from just the retail primary. It is important to highlight that there is no federal prohibition on consumption cafes, lounges, or farm-made sales. We conducted our own private third-party survey here in Nelson, DC, and we asked people different questions about what they thought about the current cannabis situation, both locally and provincially. The results of those survey questions are going to be coming up right now. We asked people if they supported cannabis consumption cafes. 91% of those folks said yes. We also asked them if they thought that Section 37 was unreasonable, and 85% of them agreed that it was unreasonable. We also asked them, given that the goal of cannabis legalization was to eliminate the illicit market, if they thought that the current policy effectively achieved this, and the vast majority
he said no. Now, in addition to a few of the questions that we personally surveyed here in our community, I'd also like to highlight a question that was posed by the DC Provincial Cannabis Survey leading up to the legalization of cannabis. And it asked people, this was years ago, DC should consider establishing licensed cafes and tasting lounges. People said that 75% agreed that they should. Obviously, there's a need and a demand for this type of business model, and we believe that it could benefit not only the consumer, but the producers and the companies that they operate.
So here we are at our final slide. We like to leave a lot of time for questions. This is my favorite slide, and it looks at this provincial cannabis regulation, section 37, through the lens of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. In fact, it's been the charter and judicial review of regulations and prohibitions that led up to legalization. Time and time again, it was quoted as the apprehension of harm, not actual harm, that led to prohibition, often rooted in fears and prejudice. Now, a year in to legalization, we're able to bring into focus more reasonable regulation and certainly an ending of full prohibition. We believe that good policy considers the charter and doesn't necessarily rely on courts to roll back overbreadth. So what I'm going to end here with now is reading this one quote that really bodes well and holds for me. And that is that the basic theory underlying the charter is that the state will respect choices made by individuals, and to the greatest extent possible will avoid subordinating these choices to anyone's conception of the good life. Relevant to what we've just heard from the MLA, there are extraordinary circumstances where sections of the charter can be overridden. My very nuanced point right now is that the apprehension of harm around cannabis no longer is a legitimate means for a full prohibition on people's freedom of peaceful assembly and freedom of association. One final thing I'd like to introduce to you here today, that Statistics Canada has a wonderful website called the Cannabis Stat Hub. And I would encourage you all in your own time, if you're interested, to look into that as a resource. Finally, we do enjoy answering questions, and over the presentation we made, we've had an opportunity. So that's the conclusion of our presentation, with the hope that we might be fielding some questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and you're indeed fortunate that we do have on our board, we have the vice president of the AKBLG as well as the person that is in charge of the resolution. So, certainly I will ask them for their input on this because, we are not sure if the PBCM will even happen this year. So maybe I'll ask Director Cleese what the UBC, or as the AKBLG decided to do with these resolutions, as we're kind of stuck at this point. So I hate to put you on the spot, but Director Cleese, can you fill these gentlemen in on the future of the resolutions?
So right now, I was just in a meeting with CAO Wilsgard and Director Russell regarding some of the actions from the AKBLG. Right now, UBCM has only been in contact with one local government association, the AVCC, because they do the administrative work for that local government station. We don't have an employee, they do the work. So they have absolutely told that local government association that all resolutions will be going directly to UBCM and skipping the local government association step. So what Director Russell will be doing on our behalf, he was in conversation with Jerry McIsaac yesterday, is to force UBCM to give us all either the same messaging or not. And so if they want all local government associations in BC to directly put resolutions towards them, the sooner we know that, the better, so we can telegraph to everybody who's on this call, quite frankly. What the AKBLG has done is given us our marching orders as a board. We're creating engagement tools for resolutions. And how we do that is sort of being worked on right now. So what the ACBLG membership can expect is absolutely to be engaged with our resolutions. If UBCM tells us that they want us to go straight to UBCM, our engagement is going to be a little bit more informal, where we're going to be polling you through survey or MailChimp about indoors, not indoors, any thoughts about the resolutions. So stay tuned for those opportunities, but right now, we have not heard a formal position from UBCM, but we're to send our resolutions straight to them, as they told ABCC.
Yeah, so I hope that was informative. And directors, I don't have anybody in the speakers list. Is there any questions of the delegation before we let them go? Director Kojak, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I have a concern about tasting rooms, in that, you know, when you're tasting rooms for wine or craft beer or whatever, there's small samplings. And, you know, the likelihood of someone becoming impaired by having a couple of samplings when you're looking at alcohol is not as significant. But, you know, someone can be very easily impaired by a single puff or consuming a small piece of an edible or whatever that is. So I'm a little concerned about this motion for those reasons, because of the impairment that can happen so quickly and so easily with cannabis.
Yeah, so to that end, again, I would suggest the Staff Canada, Cannabis Staff has some great information, including the comparison of the harms of alcohol to that cannabis. That aside, I believe that the provincial government is pressing to continue sort of motoring forward the illicit market from both the production and the retail side, is looking at farm gate sales as a way of sort of dealing with that problem. But in doing so, they're leaving aside what is really the more essential part for us, which is more the cafe or the socializing model. When it comes to the harms to people on tours to wine and alcohol distilleries or breweries, I would have to agree. I'm sure the RDEK are going to have some issues around that. My point is that the Section 37 is a full stop prohibition. It doesn't leave any rooms to operate at all. It's enforced by the community safety administratively, the letter in the mail. So I believe that with allowing it to happen, along with suitable regulation, is the way forward, given the charter that you have the fundamental right for association and peaceful assembly. And certainly businesses and small farms, especially in your region, stand to benefit if permitted. But your concerns are real and you're noticed, and I believe to be considered.
Thank you. And I've got some questions from Director McCarrick and then Director Wilkes in that order. Director McCarrick, please.
Thank you, Chair. To the presenters, we have a BC-wide smoking bylaw now. You're not allowed to smoke anywhere in public facilities or restaurants or bars. Why is this different?
So there's actually not intended to be any smoking in any of these premises. We've also been in contact with the various health organizations in the province, and we've spoken with them about different operating procedures for somewhere that would be allowed to, instead of smoke, vaporize very pure, very medicinally necessary cannabis essential oils, basically. So there would be no smoke, no large particulates. It would only be like a water vapor and a small aroma that would be exuded as the communal air. In addition, the proposed facilities that I've been privy to all have the state-of-the-art ventilation and expert supervision.
Thank you.
So, if I may, Chair?
Yes, okay.
The smoking bylaw also takes into account vaping. We're not allowed to vape in public as well, so I don't see where you're coming from.
Yeah, okay, so to that end, Director, the smoking inside the workplace, of course, we have to adhere to that as regulations. So we do, alternate means of consuming cannabis outside of smoking are in fact the preferred methods, not only for the proposed business operators, but in fact for cannabis consumers. Smoking is, within the cannabis industry, somewhat of an archaic term. How local government has applied their local bylaws around smoking and vaping is really a reflection of how the province has done it with the new provincial Smoke and Vape Act, which is they just take everything and pull it into one big umbrella. Whereas the courts take a more performative view on this. Upon review, I believe we rule quite clearly that consuming cannabis does not dictate either vaporizing or smoking. So there are other ways. And in fact, that the harms associated with it, with cannabis are nowhere near the health concerns with tobacco. But again, the point is appreciated. But a year into this, what we see is the legalization of cannabis. That is legal, but you just can't do it. You can't socialize, you can't share your subscribers for harm reduction, and simply you're not allowed to have fun together. So our goal is to take the conversation away from the negative and scenario building around some of the bigger issues that don't necessarily. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Wilkes, and then Director Wilkie, and then I think we'll move on. Director Wilkes, please.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes. No, now we lost.
There we go. You can hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you very much for this. I only bring you back to your last slide with regards to the Charter of Rights and Freedoms and your suggestion under Section 37 through the lens of the Charter. I wouldn't, my only suggestion to you is I wouldn't push this too hard because you would require a court process for that, which could take years and years, as you probably know. I would strongly suggest that you just try and work it through to the provincial government. Otherwise, it'll be a process that you just don't want to go through.
So to that point, to the record, as you know, as Director Khan has said in the past, like you engage in the process, but you have to keep your eye on the prize. So this process, as we've seen the unfolding legalization, has been drawn out even at the best of times. And I certainly do appreciate that it's required of us to try and build this within policy, within the regulations in the way that we're doing it. However, I do disagree. Charter, if the courts do agree to hear a charter argument on a particular regulation or law, that process in fact becomes accelerated and is meant to move very, very quickly. With the fact the onus being on the Crown to prove that prohibition would be necessary. In discussions with charter lawyers around it, everybody's agreeable in a true sense of how to move this to this point, which is we engage in the process, we remain to be integrated within our societies and within our towns and communities, while at the same time asserting ourselves and the way that we fought here, which is through judicial review. So to your point about the timing, although my hope is that we can do this and have a forceful resolution in the UDCN that causes the province to look at this seriously, that in fact the charter argument could happen quite quickly. Thank you very much.
So Director Wilkie, last word, and then we'll move on.
Yes, my comment would be just as we, as a society, have really gone out of our way to support the booze industry, I see no reason why we should not support the resolution for cannabis.
Thank you. So we'll have that opportunity, we hope, at UBCM to debate that. Thank you very much for the delegation. Directors, we're just a little, just after 12 after 10. Let's take a 10-minute break. We'll come back and you go through our material, and I will do a roll call. I neglected to do that at the beginning, but we'll pick that up. So we'll have a little biology break, and then at 10:20, let's reconvene. Thank you very much. And thank you. Thanks, folks, from Nelson.
Hey Lee, good to see you have the sunglasses on. Healing going okay? You're on mute.
I was just gonna send you a text.
I'm good.
Okay. I'll send you a text.
All right, awesome. So Dave, you just got schooled on section 37. Not really. I don't think they realize to get to a charter argument, you actually have to go through a court process.
Oh, John, you just made me laugh so hard.
I don't know where that,
Directors, just a quick reminder that there is a live stream, so although we're on a break, there is still ambient audio.
awesome.
I can try to mute the speaker in here, but just in case, I thought I'd better let you know.
Okay, we'll shut up, thanks. Why shut up? Hey, that's cool.
That's one nice thing about having
Give everybody a 1 minute warning, we'll get back at it.
lately, and
Yes. Let them go over. Oh. Okay.
They'll be able to hear you.
Directors, we're gonna call the
They
meeting.
are saying, all they're hearing is, you don't want Alberta, but that's not what we want to say.
Directors,
Yeah, hang on.
discussions, everybody can overhear you at this point, so we'll ask you to get back to the meeting. And as I mentioned, I did neglect to do the roll call, so I'm just gonna go from the voters list and we'll see if everybody's here. It just kind of reminds me of the old days when we used to punch time clocks to make sure we got paid, so this is your opportunity. So Director Klobuchar, are you with us today?
Yes, I am, Chair, thank you.
Director Doyle? We'll come back to him, I see his blessed. Myself, I'm here, Director Graham?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. Director
Cormac
Cormac
here.
Thank you. Director McCarricker? Yep, he's here. Director Miller? See Director Pratt?
I'm here.
Okay, thanks, Director.
I'm here.
Okay, I'm still looking for Director Doyle. We'll get back to him. Director Galisa, I see is here.
Yes.
Director Reinhardt? Present.
Here.
Director Sosnowski?
Here.
Thank you. Director Sturzer?
Here.
Thank you. Director Walter?
Here.
Thank you. Director Wilkie?
Present.
And Director Wilkes? Yeah, we got Director Wilkes, thank you. We'll circle back to Director Doyle. He's just left his room, but I see his photo on there for a minute. So we'll get rolling here.
Okay, we're on section 6, correspondence.
Director's quite a list of correspondence. If there's any particular one you'd like to pick out or highlight, please let us know.
Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
The correspondence from UBCM regarding the resolutions process, I think that it makes sense. I would like to have them add that I'd rather see them working to combine similar resolutions by inviting those submitting bodies to collaborate and resubmit. So I don't know if that's what they do. It wasn't defined in the correspondence that that's what they do, but do it. They were gonna, my understanding is that they put them all together, but I think it would be far more effective if UBCM would have the jurisdictions that submit similar resolutions to go back to the drawing board and submit one that they all support. It would probably speed up the process, especially if we're going to end up with potentially an abbreviated. Yeah, that would be my recommendation.
Good suggestion. I'm going to ask Director Galisa to make some comment on that. She's been quite working in depth with resolutions at DPVLT. Go ahead, Director Galisa, please.
Yeah, thank you. And to Director Klobuchar's point, in advance of Gary McIsaac getting his directive from his UBCM board, Director Russell and myself had that exact conversation. This whole engagement piece was really stemming from the volume of resolutions UBCM was getting, and it's just not working. So they actually feather in our cap was looking at our prioritization piece. We spoke at length about how one of our goals with that early call out, to your point, Director Klobuchar, was to minimize similar resolutions. This is the first year we did it. It actually did work. We had some co-sponsored resolutions. Next year it's just going to get better as we learn how to do that. So the idea with this was going to be a shared presentation where I would be as a panelist with UBCM, and then them presenting their challenges and us trying to help them solve it. So it wasn't really, it was going to be very nimble, and it's the first time they were going to present at all local government associations. So for us, that felt like a real step in the right direction, and I think they know it's broken and they're looking to many of us to try to fix it. So I couldn't agree more with you.
Thank you. Next on the speakers list, Director Wilkes, anything on correspondence? Go ahead.
Yeah, 614. Thank the government for enacting the Emergency Act, but I am a little disappointed that they took away the authority of any municipality or regional district to invoke their local state of emergency. But it is what it is, so that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anything else, directors, on correspondence before we move on? Okay.
We're now moving on to section 9, committee recommendations. First is the Governance and Regional Services Committee, item 9.1.1. Before we get started, I just want to confirm, is Director Doyle back with us or is he absent?
Yes, he is.
He's with us? Thank you very much. So item not.
Can I interrupt Director Wilkie? I'm not being heard, or am I in the meeting?
Yes, you are. Yeah, we can hear you.
Because I asked for discussion on 6.4.
Okay, go ahead. 6.4.
Yes, just, we were being asked to support the motion, or support the moratorium. Are we going to do that?
I didn't notice that in the letter. Certainly in our cover letter, we didn't want the dole hunting season. So let me look.
Okay, so we've already done that.
That's right. That's been our position.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fine. Thank you. My light is when I go to click on my microphone, the light won't come on.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I didn't have you on the list, so just speak up any ones that know, but I've been trying to follow the list. Good. All right, thank you. We'll go back to committee recommendations. Go ahead.
So we're on item 9.1.1. Moved by Director Wilkes, seconded by Director McCarricker, that the check register for the RDEK general account for March 2020 in the amount of $1,798,490.35 be approved as paid.
Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I'm going to ask, is anybody opposed to this? Hearing none, motion is carried.
Next item is 9.1.2. Moved by Director Wilkie, seconded by Director Klobuchar, that a Community Emergency Preparedness Fund grant application for $75,000 be submitted for upgrades and equipment for the Regional Emergency Operations Center in Cranbrook and the District of Invermere and Village of Canal Flats Emergency Operations Centers, as well as provide additional emergency management training for the region with the RDK to provide overall grant administration.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, is there anybody opposed to this motion? Hearing none, the motion is carried.
Item 9.1.3. Moved by Director Wilkie, seconded by Director Reinhardt, that the RDEK endorse the memo to MLAs Klobuchar and Shapika and MP Morrison requesting advocacy for proposed provincial and federal policies to support community impact investing.
Further discussion? Is anybody opposed to the motion? Okay, hearing none, the motion is carried.
Item 9.1.4. Moved by Director Klobuchar, seconded by Director Wilkie, that bylaw 2991, Rushmere Water System Parcel Tax Roll bylaw be introduced.
Further discussion? Is there anybody opposed to the motion? Hearing none, the motion is carried.
Item 9.1.5. Moved by Director Reinhardt, seconded by Director Wilkes, that bylaw number 2992, Water and Sewer System Regulation Fee Amendment bylaw be introduced.
Any further discussion? Is there any opposition to this motion? Hearing none, motion is carried.
Item 9.1.6. This is a weighted vote of the Columbia Valley Directors. Moved by Director Reinhardt, seconded by Director Klobuchar, that the conditions attached to the 2020 operational funding for the Columbia Valley Airport Society be amended to require that the assessment of the assets be completed by a qualified person.
Any further discussion? Is there anybody opposed to this motion? Hearing none, the motion is carried.
Item 9.1.7. This is a weighted vote of the Columbia Valley Directors, moved by Director Wilkie, seconded by Director Reinhardt, that pursuant to Transit Advisory Commission Bylaw 2155, Pete Burke, Nadine Hale, Patrick Mayani, and Jane Thurgood-Segal be appointed to the Columbia Valley Transit Advisory Commission for a 2-year term expiring February 28, 2022.
Further discussion? Hearing none, is anybody opposed to this motion? Seeing no opposition, the motion is carried.
Item 9.1.8. Moved by Director Wilkie, seconded by Director Miller, that Owen Mitchell be appointed to the Advisory Planning Commission and Electoral Area Advisory Commission for Electoral Area G.
Any further discussion? Is there anybody opposed to the motion? Seeing none, the motion is carried. I'd just like to thank all those volunteers and for both those appointments. It's really important that the public do engage and volunteer on a number of our committees, so we're always appreciative of that, and it's a long commitment for 2 years. So thanks very much.
We're moving next to the Planning and Development Services Committee recommendations. First item is 9.2.1. Moved by Director Gay, seconded by Director McCarricker, the bylaw 2981, Rocky View Official Community Plan, amended bylaw number 25, Cranbrook North Hill, be introduced.
Further discussion? Seeing or hearing none, is there anybody opposed? Seeing no opposition, the motion is carried.
Same item continued, moved by Director Gay, seconded by Director Doyle, the bylaw 2982, Electoral Area C, South Zoning and Floodplain Management, amended bylaw number 4, Cranbrook North Hill, be introduced.
Any discussion? Okay, is anybody opposed to the motion? Seeing no opposition, the motion is carried.
Item 9.2.2. Moved by Director Doyle, seconded by Director Gay, that the Agricultural Land Commission be advised the RDEK supports the Williamson ALR exclusion application for their property at 1665 on Roy Road, North in Craigmont.
Is there any discussion? Okay, is anybody opposed to this motion? Hearing no opposition, the motion is carried.
Item 9.2.3. Moved by Director Walter, seconded by Director Klochop, that the Agricultural Land Commission be advised the RDEK supports the Tweetmeyer ALR exclusion application for their property at 8078 Bandman Crescent in Meadowbrook.
Any discussion? Is there anybody opposed to this motion? Hearing no opposition, the motion is carried.
Item 9.2.4. Moved by Director Walter, seconded by Director Sosnowski, that the Agricultural Land Commission be advised the RDEK supports the Hetherington and Thompson ALR non-adhering residential use application for their property at 8826 Egan Road.
Further discussion? Is anybody opposed to this motion? Hearing none, the motion is carried.
Item 9.2.5. Moved by Director Gay, seconded by Director Doyle, that TELUS Communications Inc. be advised TELUS Communications Inc. has satisfactorily completed its consultation with the Regional District of East Kootenay. The Regional District of East Kootenay is satisfied with TELUS Communications Inc.'s public consultation process, and the Regional District of East Kootenay concurs with TELUS Communications Inc.'s proposal to construct a wireless telecommunications facility on property located at 9795 Estates Road in Moye, provided it is constructed substantially in accordance with the plan submitted to the RDEK.
Is there any further discussion? Is there anybody opposed? Hearing none, the motion is carried.
Item 9.2.6. Moved by Director Doyle, seconded by Director Klochop, that TELUS Communications Inc. be advised, TELUS Communications Inc. has satisfactorily completed its consultation with the Regional District of East Kootenay. The Regional District of East Kootenay is satisfied with TELUS Communications Inc.'s public consultation process, and the Regional District of East Kootenay concurs with TELUS Communications Inc.'s proposal to construct a wireless telecommunications facility on property located at 6370 Tie Lake Road in Tie Lake, provided it is constructed substantially in accordance with the plan submitted to the RDEK.
Further discussion? Is there anybody opposed to this motion? Hearing none, the motion is carried.
Same item continued, moved by Director Gay, seconded by Director Doyle. That staff be authorized to enter into a statutory right-of-way agreement with TELUS Communications Inc. for a proposed wireless telecommunications facility at Tie Lake Regional Park.
Discussion? Is there anybody opposed? Hearing none, the motion is carried.
Item 9.2.7. In regards to this item, the committee has recommended that the Ministry of Transportation Infrastructure Section 16 map reserve application not be supported, and that a meeting be requested with the ministry and the Shuswap Indian Band to discuss the proposed land transfer. At the committee meeting, the directors were asked to submit comments that could be provided to the ministry. The following comments have been received. The land in question in the referral has very high habitat conservation values for bighorn sheep, badger, and mule deer, and the Stoddard Creek Access Management Area was established to help to protect those values. And in recent years, significant ecosystem restoration projects have been undertaken in this AMA. The board may wish to consider moving this new option 3, which includes the comments, and the committee recommendation to not support.
So that was a comment. I'm just going to ask Manager McLeod, have you received any other comments from any of the other directors at this point?
No, just what Shannon provided just now.
So what we're asking this board is to, we're not changing our vote, but we are just wanting to add those comments to the ministry for the referral.
I would suggest that if the board would like to include those comments in the resolution, that we have a motion to that effect. And I have the wording which encompasses everything, and I can read the whole thing in its entirety if that's the desire.
Yes, I think, let's put that on the floor and see where that goes. We do appreciate those comments.
Okay, so the motion.
Director Wilkie, I have been able to speak. Am I heard?
Yes, just let us get this motion on the floor, Director, and then we'll speak to it.
Thank you.
Okay.
So the motion would be that the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure be advised the RDEK does not support the Ministry's Section 16 map reserve application for true Crown-owned lots on the east side of Highway 9395 between Invermere and Dry Gulch, and the following comments be provided. The land in question in the referral has very high habitat conservation values for bighorn sheep, badger, and mule deer, and the Stoddard Creek Access Management Area was established to help protect those values. In recent years, significant ecosystem restoration projects have been undertaken in this AMA, and further, that a meeting be requested with the ministry and Shuswap Indian Band to discuss the proposed land transfer.
Director Wilkie, would you like to make that motion?
Yes, I'll make the motion, but can I comment as well?
Yes, just let me get a seconder, and then we'll do that. Somebody get a seconder?
I'll second that.
Director Wilczek, second. Thank you. So, Director Wilkie, comments?
Yes, my comments are that to Manager Muscal, and that Director Reinhardt had submitted some comments as well. Do you have those?
No, I do not have those comments.
Director Reinhardt, if you would.
Yeah, so what happened was, when we had the discussion earlier this week, I sent an email to Director Wilkie and to Manager Muscal, giving some sample types of questions that we would like to, or comments that we'd like to add, and was asking for feedback. So it was my miss that I didn't forward that same document to Manager McLeod yesterday. But essentially, one of the reasons that we are not supporting this is because there's too many unknowns. So we're trying to understand what the process was for determining how the Shuswap would be reimbursed. Was there ever a talk of financial gain? How did they come to select these parcels of land? The public just feels like they've been side railed, and that's a well-used parcel of land, both of them. We also want to understand if they're frozen now, can they still continue to be used on the current uses? Certainly, should the land transfer happen, I think the Shuswap would, I feel that they would be probably quite likely to maintain some of those conservation values, but it would be nice to have that expressed from them. So those are some of the comments that I had, and it was about the timelines and the public being in the dark about absolutely everything.
So that suggested in the motion of the meeting, there certainly would be something where you could address, or you could address those items. Are you comfortable with that, Director Reinhardt?
Absolutely.
Okay. And just clarify for me. No. Other speakers? Go ahead.
Yeah, Director Wilkie, if we could, I just would think it would add strength to the motion if some of the discussion that Director Reinhardt just had was incorporated, but maybe it's too lengthy.
Yeah, I think, certainly the unknowns was well pointed out. I think justifies the request for a meeting, which is very good.
And if I could just suggest a further, I'm not sure it has to be an amendment, but that the meeting that we're requesting also include Indigenous affairs, provincial Indigenous affairs.
Okay. Yeah, I think we'll. Director Volchek.
Thank you, Chair. I think in the letter, I'd like to see us add something about the recreational values. I had heard from the ministry that they didn't realize, because there are lots of trails on the property, but they're not sanctioned trails. So as when the decision was being made in Victoria to consider these lands, they didn't have the full picture of how this property is used by the community at large. So I think we need to add a point into this motion about also the recreational values.
Okay, we're just doing that as we speak. I just want to get some clarification, Manager Mossel. Is this a full board vote, or is this a ballot?
This is a full board.
Full board, okay. Further comments? I've got David Wilkes on my list. Director Wilkes, go ahead.
Yeah, my only concern here, I have no problem with the motion. My only concern is that both the Shuswap and the Tanaha are under land claims negotiations right now, and I don't even know where this goes. This is beyond wherever they are in their land claims negotiations, and it could confuse it even further.
Yes, thank you. Director Reinhardt, further comments?
So in actual fact, the Shuswap are not in any form of land claims right now, but this territory is also part of Tanaha traditional land. So you're right. So maybe that would be a question we ask as well. How come they're doing this? I think I know why. It's because the widening and twinning of the highway. So it's one of those things that have to happen. It's Crown land. I think, you kind of made the comment yesterday, Director Wilkes. It's Crown land. The government pretty much is going to do what they do.
Thank you. So we're going to see if we did capture the recreational values as suggested into the motion, and then we'll have a vote on it. So, Manager Mossel, if we could just hear the motion again for the directors and myself.
One moment, please. Waiting for the computer to catch up. So the motion on the floor is that the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure be advised the RDEK does not support the Ministry's Section 16 map reserve application for 2 Crown-owned lots on the east side of Highway 93-95 between Invermere and Dry Gulch, and the following comments be provided. The land in question in the referral has very high habitat conservation values for bighorn sheep, badger, and mule deer, and the Starter Creek Access Management Area was established to help protect those values. In recent years, significant ecosystem restoration projects have been undertaken in this AMA, and further, that a meeting be requested with the ministry and Shuswap Indian Band to discuss the proposed land transfer. In follow-up, there were a number of additional comments that have been provided here, as well as a request to add provincial Indigenous affairs to the meeting request. So my suggestion is if we want to add this to the motion, that this is an amendment to the motion. Would you like me to read what I've heard so far?
Yes, please.
So I'm suggesting, based on what we've heard, that an amendment to this motion would be to add provincial Indigenous affairs to the meeting request and to add the following comments. It is unclear what the process was to determine how to reimburse Shuswap for the land on which the highway runs through their land. If cash was offered, how the land was selected, and what the timelines were. Next comment, the public feels there wasn't much time to gather information or support. And next comment, the proposed parcels are well used by a variety of recreation enthusiasts.
Okay, this is going to be the longest resolution ever from this board, I think, but it's a good one. So I'm going to ask for a mover or seconder for the amendment. Director Reinhardt moves, Director Close seconds. Discussion on the amendment. Is there anybody in opposition? Director Wilkie.
Yeah, I have a question for Manager McLeod.
You may. Go ahead.
May I do that?
Yes.
Yes, just the motion that is, looks like it's going to be supported, is, the original motion was to support the idea of the map reserve. Do you see any problems by us eliminating that from the motion that is on the floor?
Chair, if I may, the original motion was to not support the Section 16 map reserve, and this motion on the floor now and the proposed amendment retains that motion of not supporting the map reserve, and then provides the additional list of bullet points.
Yes,
sir. Why?
Certainly, thank you very much. So we are not supporting the map reserve, and a long motion is the reasons why.
Okay. But I guess my question was the implications of not, what are the repercussions of not supporting the map reserve? I mean, are we left open to something that we haven't discussed?
Well, the information, the motion of this board will be part of the information that the province uses to decide whether to proceed with establishing the Section 16 reserve on these two parcels of land or not.
Okay, are we clear on that?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so is Director Reinhardt, and then we're going to vote.
Yeah, so I think further to what Director Wilkie is saying, the idea that he's trying to impart is that it's not that we don't get it. We think that there should be something that they get in lieu of the property they're losing. So I wonder if in the letter that gets written, is that a preamble that while in principle we understand this, we can't support it at this time because of all these reasons.
Okay, we could capture that in the letter. I'm seeing no.
Yeah, I would certainly support that.
Okay, thank you. So, are we voting on the amendment? Is there anybody opposed? Hearing none, the motion is carried. So back to the main motion, and again, just to reiterate, we are not supporting this map reserve without having a meeting and have a further understanding. Is there anybody opposed? Hearing none, the motion is carried.
Okay, the next item, moving to section 10, bylaws. Item 10.1. The bylaw number 2991, Rushmere Water System Parcel Tax Roll Bylaw, be read a first, second, and third time.
We have we need mover and a seconder, moved by Dr. Klobuchar, get a seconder, Dr. Wilkes, thank you. Discussion? Is there anybody opposed? Hearing none, the motion is carried.
Same item continued, the bylaw 2991, Rushmere Water System Parcel Tax Roll bylaw be adopted.
Mover. Director Wilczek, thanks. Director Sturzer, seconds. Discussion? Is there any opposition? Hearing none, motion is carried.
Item 10.2. The bylaw number 2992, Water and Sewer System Regulation Fee Amendment bylaw be read a first, second, and third time.
Mover. Director Sturzer, thank you. Director Wilczek, seconds. Discussion? All in favor? Excuse me. Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion is carried.
Same item continued, the bylaw number 2992, Water and Sewer System Regulation Fee Amendment bylaw be adopted.
Mover. Director Sturzer, second. Director Wilkes, discussion. Is there anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion is carried.
Next are section 11 planning bylaws, item 11.1. That bylaw number 2966, Fairmont Hot Springs and Columbia Lake Area Official Community Plan, amended bylaw number 5, Fairmont Hot Springs Resort be adopted.
Mover. Director Sturzer, second. Director Wilczek. Is there any discussion? Is there any opposition? Hearing no opposition, the motion is carried.
Item 11.2. The bylaw number 2967, Upper Columbia Valley zoning, amended bylaw number 357, Fairmont Hot Springs Resort be adopted.
Mover. Director Sturzer, Director Wilczek. Thank you very much. Discussion. Is there anybody opposed? Hearing none, the motion is carried.
Item 11.3. That the public hearing report for bylaw 2972, as submitted by Director Doyle, be accepted.
Get a mover, please. Director Sturzer, mover.
Director Doyle.
Director Doyle, seconds. Discussion. Is there anybody in opposition? Hearing none, the motion is carried.
Item 11.4. The bylaw number 2972, South Country Zoning and Floodplain Management, amended bylaw number 21, Kukunusa West, C.D. Ray and Sons Limited, be read a third time.
Mover. Director Doyle. Director McCarron, seconds. Discussion. Is there anybody opposed? Hearing none, the motion is carried.
Same item continued, the bylaw 2972, South Country Zoning and Floodplain Management, amended bylaw number 21, Kukunusa West, C.D. Ray and Sons Limited, be adopted.
Moved by Director Doyle. Second, Director Doyle. Discussion. Is there anybody opposed? Hearing no opposition, the motion is carried.
Item 11.5. The bylaw number 2981, Rocky View Official Community Plan, amended bylaw number 25, Cranbrook North Hill, be read a first and second time.
Moved by Director Sturzer, second. Seconder, Director Wilkes, thank you very much. Discussion. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, motion is carried.
Item 11.6. The bylaw number 2982, Electoral Area C, Self-Zoning and Floodplain Management, amended bylaw number 4, Cranbrook North Hill, be read a first and second time.
Moved by Director Sturzer, second Director Wilczek. Discussion. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, motion is carried.
Item 11.7. That a public hearing be held regarding bylaw 2981 and 2982, and the hearing be delegated to Directors Rob Day, Lee Pratt, and Wes Graham.
Moved by Director Sturzer, second. Seconder, Director Wilkes, thank you. Discussion. Seeing none, is there any opposition? Hearing no opposition, the motion is carried. We just don't know how to do a public hearing yet, but we will. So it is carried. We'll figure that one out.
The public hearing will actually be scheduled at a later date.
Yeah, I hope.
So the next is section 13, reports from directors.
Directors, we're going to go on voting list, as I mentioned, in reverse order. That's kind of the way we're going around the room. So I'm going to start with Director Wilkes, and we'll work around the list. So Director Wilkes, the floor is yours.
Thanks. With all that's going on, I got nothing to report. I think we can all figure out what's going on.
Thank you. Director Wilkes. Director Wilkes, can't help you, you're on mute. Oh, you're muted.
Am I okay now?
Yes.
Am I okay now?
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to express my deep appreciation to the entire staff of the RDEK for maintaining the services in this really tough time. And in particular, I think from our board standpoint, in organizing such an excellent way of meeting under the circumstances.
Thank you, very much appreciated. Director Walter.
Thank you. I would also like to thank all the staff and the members of the board for, working as hard as they are for everybody in the area. I also want to remind everybody to take time and take a couple deep breaths for your own health, just to be relaxed sometimes and take it easy. Bye.
Okay, thank you very much. Director Sturzer.
Thank you very much. I would echo those opinions of the other directors. I really do appreciate staff. I really appreciate the directors and this camaraderie we have, the ability to reach out in a text or a brief email or a phone call and get that support and help that we need. Maria's been amazing. And, these are crazy times. Don't have to tell anybody this. And I do believe as we exercise our discipline, we're going to find our freedom out of this. And better days are definitely here to come in the future. Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Director Sosnowski.
Yeah, just echoing everybody else's, and be safe out there. And if I stay any calmer, I'm going to go crazy.
We wouldn't want to see that. Okay.
No, thank you.
Thank you very much. Director Ryder.
Hi, thanks everyone. So yes, staff everywhere is amazing and we appreciate them. So have to add that. And I also appreciate the work you're all doing because we're kind of out there and we're catching some of the stuff that nobody expected. Some of the letters and emails are, you still have to shake your head. I'm sure we could write books at the end of all. A highlight for me right now is our two chambers and our two DMOs have pulled together along with a couple of other agencies and are working together on reporting out and on working towards recovery and on sharing information on ways to support each other. That has been a real silver lining here, and I hope that we can maintain that after. Construction. Interestingly enough, that's one of the areas that seems to be moving forward. There's a bunch of work happening on the rail right now. I went by the Prestige this morning and I have to go in and say, how come there's been cars here all week? Like their parking lot's almost full. And it's the CP rail workers that are working there. They each have a suite and they leave on a bus at 12:30 to go to the site they're working. When they come home, they have a menu ready and the guy in the kitchen that runs the restaurant comes in for several hours a day, cooks all their meals, and they come out and pick them up and take them back to their room. So, that's kind of a good surprise to know that they're doing that and still managing to follow the rules. We have had word that the tenders have closed for our roundabout project and all indicators are that that will move forward. The hot springs, they're working in isolation in there and they poured the cement this week. So it has to cure a week, and when this is all over, believe it or not, our hot springs will be open. That's great. And I don't know about you guys, but it was not a good April Fool morning to wake up to snow.
You were here looking out the window about 10 minutes ago. It was going sideways. It was really snowing. Thank you, Director. Director Lisa.
Thanks, everyone. There's some pretty remarkable stories coming out of this response. Director Reinhardt and myself, and I know Al's on here somewhere, we were meeting with resort mayors and as we did our bit of a conversation on Sunday or early evening, we learned about 3 or 4 fab labs that are retooling to make medical masks. We can't speak enough about our local distillers that are doing hand sanitizer. And I think it's our job as leaders to try to model that calm that we keep hearing about and talking about the good things that are happening. I think the other thing that I'm thankful for is that people would realize that these actually are phones. And so instead of text and really terrible emails, we're all calling each other a lot more often and saying, hey, I heard you were doing this in your community. So I feel a little bit more connected to many of you than I did even last year. So I think that's a real positive thing for us. And I know all of our staff at the regional district, at the pre-OC, at our little EOC here and up and down the valley, we're all working going in the same direction. So that's great. And I don't know if you guys thought I was better behaved today or not, but the stand-up desk really helps me just stay in the middle, right? So we might have to look at the stand-up desk in the regional district when we get out of here.
Okay, thank you very much. Director Brock. Oh, not here, Director Brock.
You're on mute.
Try again.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, okay, so, yeah, I just wanted to say, I mean, we're all worried with our business situation in our community, so what we've done in Cranbrook is I took my economic development officer and I instructed him to set up some kind of a task force that we could deal with that. So we've set up an economic resiliency task force. We've included a number of people in the community to set up working groups. And we've also included Mayor McCormick and Mayor Sturzer from Canal Flats. And so we've been going on with that. Right now, we're just more or less making sure our business community gets the information available to them. But we're also, we have a big forum planned for next week for ideas for post-pandemic, how we can help these businesses get back on their feet and get back to business. So we're working strongly on that. We've got really good reception on it, lots of good involvement. And so if anybody out there has some really great ideas of how to help your community businesses get back in the swing of things, please give myself or Darren Brewer a call, or even Mayor McCormick or Mayor Sturzer. And basically that's what we're concentrating our efforts on now. So just wanted to make sure everybody knew that. Otherwise, it's everybody's going through the same thing. Thank you for everybody's cooperation. I know the regional district staff's been great. My staff at the city's been good. So we'll just stay together, stay safe, and keep the social distancing, and we'll get through it. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Brock. Director Miller.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and certainly I too echo all the comments of the previous directors here. Certainly our work here in the village is certainly carrying on with meetings, keeping up with our Shuswap initiative with SETI, and certainly done many interviews trying to ask people to stay in place, as I'm sure most people have throughout the valley. We've done things in town office, such as our utility billing and such, removing penalties until further notice, or actually until November. And certainly, again, want to thank staff. Appreciate everything that's happening at all levels. And just a little piece of humor here. I'm going to point this one out to Director McCormick. Director McCormick, darn lucky this thing happened, because our hockey team actually did have your number, and we were just waiting to get back to our own barn. And that's everything.
Too bad he's got a turn coming up. Thank you, Director Miller. Director McCarron.
Thank you, Chair. I thought McCormick was before me, but that's okay. Yeah, so I say the same thing everybody else has said so far. Thanks to staff of the regional district and for doing what they did for this meeting. Every day I learn more and more technology. I want to thank the Mayor of Sparwood and the Mayor of Fernie, who put out daily or bi-daily messages to the public, and my public are on me now to get public and do videos because they're learning more from Sparwood and Ferdy than they are from the Alfred Bear. So I actually put a video on Monday night, and I worked on one last night, and it'll be going out this afternoon again, the second video. So stay tuned, there could be more. And I'm a Zoomer now. Thanks. Everybody stay safe.
We look forward to that. Thanks very much. Director Corbin.
Peer pressure is a wonderful thing. So first off, I'm not sure how many saw the press release, I believe it was yesterday from CDP. Hands up, anybody who saw it? One, two, a couple. So I just, by review, Columbia Basin Trust have announced $11.7 million in new initiatives that are going to be funneled into the basin here this week. It's already started. And 7.2 million is for working capital, business working capital, and for service delivery for the various agencies out there. When you think about agencies and you think across the basin, it's kind of hard to believe, but we have 31 food banks, 30 social not-for-profit organizations, 40 housing not-for-profit organizations, 14 hospices, and over 150 child care providers. So beginning on Wednesday, CDP staff were making personal calls to every single one of those organizations to find out exactly what their state was, what help they needed, and how they might be able to take advantage of some of the funds and resources that are available from CDP. There was an additional $4.5 million in economic development money that has been put into the basin as well. That whole 11.7 is all economic benefits. I mean, even though it's not aimed directly at economic development initiatives, the other social delivery stuff is also going to provide economic benefits. So there is a news release that's gone out that details a lot of this. The applications for working capital loans, very low interest loans for business is already on the table, and we are so fortunate to have this organization here in our communities. Interestingly, my observation with respect to our EOCs and just generally the organization around the COVID-19 pandemic is at least an order of magnitude more organized and better than what I observed a couple of years ago with the wildfire issues. Certainly when we went on alert for those 18 days, we learned a whole lot about how unprepared we were, because everything up to that point in time had been basically desktop exercises to test our resourcing. I think by having gone through the wildfire a couple of years ago emergency, it was kind of like a dry run for what we're doing. And I am so impressed with how organized all of our organizations and agencies are. Al, I saw the interview that you did on CTV earlier in the week. I thought it was awesome. I don't know how many, it was CTV Calgary that this was on. And basically the message was stay home. And if people don't stay home, we're hooped. And that was a quote. It was awesome. And I'm happy to arm wrestle anytime, Al. I will break physical distancing in order to do that. So let me know.
Thank you, Director McCormick. Thank Columbia Basin Trust as well. I'm sure many of the businesses and not-for-profit organizations will take advantage of that. Director Graham? So I'll come back and see if maybe he's not. Director Doyle, you're next.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank the board, and these are trying times that we're in. The amount of calls we're getting, our staff's doing an excellent job, but just trying to keep everything under control. And I had just a quick note. This is, I don't want to, on a resolution that we put in there, and it was I don't know if this is the place to bring it up, Chair, but I'd just like to have a comment from the board while we got the board's attention.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. And it was just in our resolution, it says closure of the backcountry to overnight camping, but we didn't want to put a message out there to people out fishing and hunting. They can go out on their daily, I don't know how we deal with that, because how do you put that in there? Somebody wants to go fishing for the day in the backcountry, and same with hunting. So should we just leave that wording in there to backcountry to overnight camping, and we can explain it from there, or what's your advice?
Yeah, so certainly, as was mentioned by somebody that, if they do the province, if it's it's in their court, if they choose to do something, they'll figure out the nuts and bolts and maybe ask us. But I think we've given enough to think about. Just to let you know as well that on the mayors and chairs call yesterday, the minister asked us to bring whatever issue forward that we wanted, and I did bring the issue of non-essential travel and gave some other suggestions around that. So I think they're hearing it from many sources, and then they'll work with that. But certainly we are heard that get out for your daily exercise. If you can practice physical distancing, we want people to eat well and stay healthy. But I think we've given enough to chew on, and I think we just probably leave it at that. Would be my advice.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for the advice. That is it's a major resolution, and if this opens the discussion on it with the provincial, federal government, I think will be good. We can explain it as we go what we're trying to do to protect the residents out there. So I'll leave it at that. But I thank the board for the support on this, and I wish everybody keep safe, your families, and let's get through this. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Polchak.
Thank you, Chair, and I just reiterate all the expressions of gratitude to staff and board for all the work that's being done. I just wanted to add to Director Reinhardt's comments about the business community. A few weeks ago, when all this started going down, we formed the Columbia Valley Business Community Support Team. And I want to acknowledge the people that are on that daily call. We have a daily call at 9 o'clock. And that's Community Futures, the Columbia Valley Community Economic Development Officer, both chambers in the Columbia Valley, Community Employment Services, our Economic Development Regional Support, Jerry Brightwell, now Flat's Economic Development Officer, and Pat Hope from Family Dynamics. We have a conversation every day about what's going on and what we need to do to move forward, make sure that the messaging is there every day. And the Columbia Valley Chamber is hosting the messages so that everything is coming into one funnel to support business, so they're not having to go a whole bunch of different places to look for information that will support the business community. I think that there's so many of our businesses that are really pivoted on how they reach their consumers. And it's been tough, but this has been an opportunity for business owners to work on their business rather than in the business. So we're providing them with tools and coming up with solutions to problems that 3 weeks ago we didn't even anticipate would ever be issues. So I'm just really, really proud of the team coming together, and I think it speaks to the relationships that they had prior to this crisis, this COVID-19 crisis, on how quickly they've come together. And I'd also like to acknowledge Lori Clausen, who's my alternate, in the volunteer work that she's doing with our volunteer website and the support that she's providing the community at large by connecting volunteers. There's some very heartwarming stories, and I know there's friendships and relationships that have created out of this that will now go on well past this crisis, and there's some lifetime friendships being formed through the work that she's doing. So I think that's a very, very positive. So there is some silver linings here, and I think we're going to be stronger as a community coming out of this than we're going in. So I just want to acknowledge all the work that's being done by people out in the community and the volunteers. So thank you, everyone. Keep safe, keep healthy, and We'll see you next month, hopefully in person, but maybe not.
Thank you very much. Director Graham, before I give my report, second chance. Oh, you must have had another engagement. So anyway, I'll take care. Oh, are you there? Sorry, Director Graham.
It's McCormick here.
Oh, okay.
Is it okay to make a comment?
Yes, by all means.
Yeah, thank you. I forgot to list this in my notes. So with eScribe, if I may, it would be really useful if the attachments had a more descriptive flavor to them. In other words, as we go through and we see if under a particular item, the details, it's difficult to know which is the staff report, for example, and which is other detail associated with it. And there's a lot of flipping around that needs to go on in order to get there. So it'd be really useful if those attachments had very specific descriptions.
Okay, staff will take that under advisement and we'll see what we can do for that.
Thank you, Chair.
So my report, I'll keep it very brief. And I think the one thing I just wanted to highlight, because many of you are looking at economic development strategies and trying to work with your business community. With my role on the MFABC, we're certainly trying to support local government. And as you know, most local governments, if not all local governments, go for short-term borrowing between now and when the taxes are collected. There's going to be a number of municipalities that are going to relax the date, and we're probably seeing more of that roll out as you meet. What that means is you're going to need more money in the short term, and the short term is going to be a little longer. So we're anticipating short-term borrowing probably in excess of $1 billion. It's going to be difficult to find $1 billion, but it's not possible. We'll probably look for some government backstops, so some fairly high-level meetings going on. We've got another conference call scheduled for later this month to see what where we need to go. Right now, the MFA is asking all the municipalities, regional districts, what your needs could potentially be, your normal needs, and what the expanded needs might be. So we're trying to get our baseline there and see what we can do around that. So certainly, got our eye on the ball about keeping local government is able to keep performing the essential services that we need to do. The other thing that spent a little time on is the federal broadband grant, which was to be concluded on March 25th. So there was a bit of a rush up to that. The federal government now has extended that deadline to April 30th. So that's good. So coming up this month, as I mentioned, the MFA calls are happening fairly often. I'll be working from home like many of you, and then we have our fingers crossed that we might be able to have an AKBLT workshop, one-day workshop in Castle in October. We continue with our planning, but we're not going to really spend any money. So again, like many of you say, thank you to staff, stay safe. But one thing that I need to learn is to not look at you folks all the time. What I've got, I don't think people realize, but I have a screen with all of you on it, and there's a couple of you that point fingers at me and then point at each other and make me laugh. So good for you. So it's kind of fun that way. So because I really did miss everybody yesterday. We don't have the energy, and as a board we get along very well. So we all miss that. So I've got people this morning. If I'm going to pick on somebody because he's been bugging me, but when our MLA was talking about haircuts, he did his haircut. We have one person that doesn't have a lot of hair. He's pointing at his head. So anyway, that's it for me. We do have a closed media, and please again get a hold of communications manager if you want to speak to myself or any of the directors. So we'll turn it over to Manager Mosley. Yes.
I'd like to read. I missed the report, and I really don't want it to go too far, but we have a confirmed case in Elford, and that person is in hospital right now being treated, and has been for over probably a week and a half. So as the mayor, of course, I'm dealing with that through the community, trying to keep everybody calm. So there's not a lot of resources out there for help. The Interior Health do not let the communities know that there's a case. They say that their position is that they deal with the patient and they respect the patient's privacy. So if they are not about to tell us if there's any more in the community, the Infectious Disease Control Center contacted the person when the test went to that they were positive. They did a little bit of research with that person and then tried to reach out to some of the business that person was at that day in particular. And then, again, not reporting to the mayor or to the community on whether or not we have more cases. And so I'm very disappointed with that and actually disgusted with that, by the way. So I'll be working hopefully with our MLA to find out why we can't get the information that we need. And I know I respect Interior Health, but I think the Infectious Disease Control Center should be talking to us. So with that, thank you very much and have a good couple of weeks. Thanks.
Don't run away yet, we're going to close, we have one item to deal with on close, so.
That the meeting adjourned to a close, RDEK Board of Directors meeting to consider the following matter. Human Resources under Section 91C of the Community Charter, Labor Relations or other employee relations.
Okay, we'd like to get a move to go to close. Director Sturzer moves, get a seconder, Director Polchuk. Discussion? Is there anybody opposed to going close? Hearing none, we're going closed. Thank you, everybody.
Goodbye.
I think everybody knows to pull back in.
Can somebody resend it to me?
Clear on what